Hand of the day.
Hey guys, it's Alec Torelli, and welcome to an episode of the Hand of the Day brought to you by 888 Poker. Today's hand comes from an episode I played at Live in the Bike, a very fun game, having a lot of fun playing these games, and a very interesting hand comes up here. So with playing 5-10, usually there's a straddle, but in this hand there's not, so just 5-10 blinds. Folded to me on the button, I make it 25 with Queen 10 of diamonds, and Wayne in the small blind makes it something like 90. And I haven't played a lot with him. This is my first session playing at Live at the Bike, but I have the read that he's a solid player, he plays well, and I just don't, he kind of knows me as a good solid professional as well, so I'm aware of my image at the time, which I think is really important. It determines a lot of how people are going to play against you. If they think you're a good player, they're going to act one way, and if they think you're a bad player, they're going to be a lot more aggressive and try and isolate you. But I think Wayne thinks I'm a good player, so I think that his strategy against me is probably just to play solid and good hands. So I think in this spot his range is a little tighter, and it's more likely he actually has a solid hand. That being said, I still have position, I still have a hand that plays well post-flop, and I'm going to just take a flop here. So I decide to call, and we go heads up to the flop. The flop comes 8-7-5 rainbow, and he bets out 100. So at this point, I'm still thinking he has a solid hand, but at the same time, he's probably going to c-bet here pretty much 100% of the time. If he has something like ace-king, I think he's just going to c-bet this flop as well and just try and take a stab at it and win the pot. He's the preflop aggressor. I'm on the button. I could have a lot of different hands, and most likely his hand's going to be good, so I think he's going to bet here almost always. In this spot, I would say that my default play, the play that you should make, the play that I make most of the time is just to fold. I have a backdoor straight draw, I do have a backdoor flush draw, I do have some overs, sure, but it's just sort of hard to win this hand, right? You have to hope that your opponent shuts down, and you have to hope that, maybe, you pick up a lot of equity on the turn, and maybe you can continue, but it's a pretty dicey, sticky situation, right? So I think that's the play here is to fold, and it's probably what I'd recommend, but I'm in this cash game, playing for the first time, I want to make a fun, good impression, and it's on Twitch, it's for the fans. So I decide I'm going to just do something a little ambitious, and float here with 2 overs, a backdoor straight draw, and a backdoor flush draw. And my logic, to be fair, was, well, if he bets the turn, I'm 100% sure he has an overpair. He's never going to bluff on this turn after I call the flop with, like, ace-king. If the turn comes, like, a blank and he bets, he's going to have an overpair. And if he checks, he's going to have air. So I was pretty sure that on the turn, he would play his air in a way that would allow me to bluff profitably if he checked. So every time he checks the turn, I was pretty much sure he would have nothing, because he's always going to bet if he has something, and I could take the pot away from him. So that was my logic going into it, and the turn comes a 9, which is a great card for me because, I pick up a lot of equity, now I have an open-ended straight draw, but at the same time, it's really tough for him to continue. Even if he has an overpair like aces or kings, he's going to definitely check, and if I bet, it's a really terrible spot for him. Like, he's basically check calling, hoping I have, like, nothing, but it's hard for me to have nothing because I called the flop. So a lot of my hands on the flop now improved on the turn, right? If I had like Jack-10, I have a straight. If I have 8-9, I have 2-pair. There's some other 2-pair combos. I could have flopped a set. I could have flopped a 2-pair. I could have any hand with a 6 in it, which now has a straight. This is a really tough spot for him to be in, and I think at this point, after he checks, I could get him to fold his hand by the river. Maybe he's going to call once on the turn, but probably he's going to fold the river if I set this play up for a jam. At the same time, I also have some equity, so I can win the pot for sure. I can improve to the best hand if a 6 comes or a jack comes as well. So it's a great card for me. Pretty much a card where I know that my fate is sealed, and I have to, like, sort of, execute my plan that I got a little ambitious with on the flop to go for it. So that's sort of a reason why, I love how I played the turn, I love how I played the river, but on the flop, you could definitely make an argument for folded. So he checks. I bet 190 into 245, and he does decide to call. On the turn, I could bet maybe a little smaller, maybe like 165, 150. Pretty sure he's going to call the turn if he has an overpair. He's going to fold if he has air. So I give myself a better price on my bluffs. And at the same time, if he does call with an overpair on the turn, I have more room on the river to shove, and it makes his odds be less on the river. When I build the pot so much on the turn, he's more committed to the hand. So I would have liked to see me bet a little bit smaller here on the turn, something like 150, 160, to give myself more impact and leverage with my shove on the river. He calls the turn, we go heads up to the river, which is an offsuit deuce, changes nothing. He checks, I go ahead and shove all in, and at this point I'm repping like a 6 for sure, I'm repping Jack 10, but at the same time, I don't know if he thinks I'm going to shove with 2 pair or I'm going to shove with a set. Maybe he thinks I'm more likely just to bet like 300 with 2 pair or check 2 pair or bet 300 with a set to try and get value. So the shove sort of polarizes my hand a little bit more than I want it to, because I don't want him to think I can't have 2 pair or a set, because then it makes my hand look more like either a bluff or a straight. And that's not good. I want him to be afraid that I could have 2 pair and a set. So maybe, depending on your opponent, you should adjust your bet sizing depending on what they think your hand looks like. So if your opponent's gonna think a shove looks like 2 pair, then shove then you should shove. If your opponent's only gonna think that like a $300 bet looks like 2 pair or a set, maybe bet 300, it's gonna ironically make him more likely to fold his overpair because he's just gonna be like, I can't beat anything. So I shoved, and Wayne called pretty damn quick, so he had my number in this hand. Props to him, he did well. Anytime someone makes a great big call, gotta give him props. Well done, Wayne. He spanked me in this one. But at the same time, I'm wondering if my bet size on the river was like maybe a little too big. Maybe the shove made him think it was more likely I was bluffing instead of less likely. So I would have been interested to see what he would have done if I bet 300. But I still think I probably would have got called. I just think Wayne had my number in this one, and he just was holding on to the horse, and he wasn't going anywhere. My play didn't work. I like how I played it on the turn. I like how I played it on the river. I'm proud that I was ambitious and creative. I think that's always important to do in poker and to be testing things out. And when I play smaller games like this, it's fun to be able to test different plays that I could then implement in the bigger games when it matters a lot. So I think that would be a strategy I would encourage you guys to try out as well. And just do things that you aren't normally comfortable with, that you don't normally do. Doesn't mean you should spew money and throw it away with no plan. I did have a plan in this hand. It didn't go like I wanted to, but I think having a plan, trying to implement it, and if you do end up finding yourself playing a game that's 2 or 3 levels smaller than your normal game, it's a great time to test these plays out here and see if they work, learn something from it, and then take what works and implement it in your main game. I hope you enjoyed this hand of the day. It was definitely a fun one, and if you guys have hands you'd like me to review, send them to me on my blog, alectorelli.com. Click on Poker, submit your hands, and I'll take the best ones and feature them here on this channel. Subscribe to my channel, I greatly appreciate it. Also, if you share this video with someone that you think would enjoy it or benefit, that would be awesome as well. And I'll see you guys next time on the hand of the day. Cheers.